أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Let's start inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. So this is our 6th week as we have been studying seeking refuge in God. So inshallah we will start from the 6th indication of the 13th flash, and we need somebody to read for us. So looks like Sister Zahi is back with us, so that we ask her to read so that she doesn't come for the next 4 weeks. No? Okay, we are not asking her for that reason. Okay, now that we we make her feel embarrassed enough, we can ask Sister Zareen. Okay, good.
Oh, the flashes and the 13th flash.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Six.
Indication.
Sixth.
One of the most dangerous stratagems of Satan is this. He makes certain sensitive and ingenuous people confuse imagining unbelief with affirming it. He shows the imagining of misguidance to be the affirmation of it. He also conjures up in their imaginations most ugly thoughts about holy individuals and sacred things. He shows also things which are essentially possible together with those that are reasonably possible, thus making those things appear to be doubts opposed to the certainty of belief. So then, the wretched sensitive man supposes that he has fallen into misguidance and unbelief, and that his certainty of belief has been lost. He falls into despair and becomes the plaything of Satan. Satan works both his despair and that weak vein of his and his confusion, so that he either goes mad or saying, all is lost, he embraces misguidance. We have explained in some parts of the Risale-i Nur just how lacking in substance are these stratagems of Satan. So here we shall discuss them only briefly as follows. Like a snake's image in a mirror cannot bite, nor the similitude of fire burn, nor the reflection of filth soil, neither can the reflections of unbelief and association of partners with God, and the shadows of misguidance and the imaginings of ugly abuse and words in the mirror of the imagination or of thought corrupt belief, change faith, or damage respectful courtesy. For the well-known rule is, in the same way that to imagine abuse is not abuse, to imagine unbelief is not unbelief, and to conceive of misguidance is not misguidance. As for the question of doubts in belief, possibilities that are essentially possible are not opposed to the certainty of belief and do not harm it. One of the established rules of the science of the principles of religion is that something which is of itself possible is not opposed to the certainty afforded by knowledge. For example, we are certain that Barla Lake is in its place consisting of water, whereas it is of itself possible that the lake sank into the ground this moment. Its so sinking is within the bounds of possibility. But since this essential possibility does not arise from any indication, it cannot be a reasonable possibility and so cause doubt. For another established rule of the principles of religion is, a possibility that does not arise from any proof or evidence is of no importance. That is, an essential possibility which does not arise from any sign cannot be a reasonable possibility, and so cause doubts and warrant importance. Thus, the unfortunate man exposed to those satanic whisperings supposes that due to such essential possibilities that he has lost his certain belief in the truths of belief. For example, numerous essential possibilities about the human aspects of the noble prophet, upon whom be blessings and peace, occur to him which cause no harm to the certainty of his belief, but he supposes that they have done so and suffers harm. Also, sometimes Satan suggests bad things about Almighty God in the form of whisperings imparted to the heart. The man trembles, supposing that his heart is corrupted, so that it says such things. But his fear and trembling and lack of consent shows that those words did not come from his heart. They rather came from satanic whisperings and were imparted and caused to be imagined by Satan. Also, among man's subtle faculties are one or two that I have been unable to specify. These do not heed the will and power of choice. Indeed, they may not be held responsible. Sometimes they govern, do not listen to the truth, and enter upon wrong things. Then Satan whispers to the man, "Your capacity is not conformable with truth and belief, so you involuntarily start doing those things which are false and vain. That means your fate has condemned you to perdition. That wretched man falls into despair and perishes." And so the believer's stronghold in the face of the former stratagems of Satan are the truths of belief and incontestable matters of the Quran, the limits of which have been defined by the principles of the purified, exacting scholars. And in the face of the latter stratagems, the believer's stronghold is to seek refuge with God and to attach no importance to them. For the more importance is given them, the more it attracts attention to them, and they grow and swell. The believer's antidote and remedy for such spiritual wounds is following the practices of the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Jazakallah khairan. So this is an interesting text, at least to me. I don't know how interesting it has been to you, but this specific text and some similar other texts has been extremely useful for me at certain points of my life. So let's revisit the text. Any brief summary that you would like to make? Mr. Zerin, go ahead.
I guess what I was reminded of kind of broadly after reading this was about like intrusive thoughts. Like sometimes for reasons I can't like understand or explain, I might get like a negative thought about myself or someone else. And it's like, I know this is not like, it feels like it's not me, but the thought still came to me. So then I'm in this kind of, oh, am I a bad person for thinking this? Or like, is there something mentally wrong with me? But I guess here it's saying that those are more external whisperings that shouldn't be like, I guess shouldn't be like dwelled upon too much.
Okay, Natalia.
Very similar to Zareen, but like going more in depth into the text, it's like sometimes you might find yourself saying something that's yes, like in like general terms, but also with your faith specifically, like one of those times when you're like, oh, God is so unfair, or something like that, and then immediately you're like, why did I think that? Like that's so wrong. I feel dirty. I feel like I'm not a believer. And the text tells you that like, hey, like it's just like you're not affirming that with your action or with your words. That was just in your head, or that was just a whisper. It's not even your fault, right? Like it's a satanic whisper. And to not like internalize that as being part of you, like that thought, and instead just seek refuge in God and realize that like just because it came to you doesn't mean it comes from you, because you do feel bad when you think those things. So just seeking refuge from God can like, and follow the practices of the Prophet can help with those wounds.
Jazakallah khairan. Yes. Any other comments? Or does this ring any bells with I don't know, whatever you are going through in your life, because there were two separate major topics that he touched upon, and Zareen and Natalia separately touched upon them. So the first one is, and he especially underlines, it's more maybe emphasized in sensitive people. Like if you're sensitive, you get a little more nervous when this is happening. And the example he gave, like sometimes even since we have a lot of biology majors here, when I was having a lot of questions at some point, then, and it still happens a lot in internet, it says for the human life to exist as such, it is 1 over such large number of possibility. Like it's 1 over a zillion or billion something. Then I was saying, but still it is 1 over something. And it's happening. How do I not know that it's not this 1 over something? Like there's this somewhat of a possibility apparently. And maybe it is this 1 over something is happening right now. Like this is, belief is maybe then not that certain. Like, I don't know if you guys get any nervous about such possibilities of it happens by itself, it happens by chance, like things just coming together over billions of years and whatnot. And since we love so much talking in scientific terms, like, I mean, these things are generally being told by science-based Islamic proofs, but they say, oh, for the universe, to human life, or the life as we are experiencing it right now, to happen, it is 1 over a zillionth. I even remember some scholars saying that it is 1 over number of sands in such and such desert. I said, okay, well, that's still 1. Like there's some 1 over there. It's not 0. Like there's some possibility you're saying. And this was shaking my faith at this point. So, I mean, of course, it depends. It depends on where you're looking at it. This is just one of the many examples that could happen out there. But author is saying that it's not really that possibility that's shaking you. It's your sensitivity that's shaking you. So would you really take this sort of a thing serious? That's why he gave an example with, like, he makes a distinction saying that something being, Assalamu alaikum, just, Ahmed, you come here, I can go, well, I mean, your wife is replacing, okay. Yeah, we have a, what's it called, Joker card? No. Anyways, I don't know the cards. Wild card, okay. Okay, so, so, like the example he gives is, I mean, he gives a specific name, but let's say Schuylkill River. Technically, I can say that it's possible that Schuylkill River is no more. You know, do you have a proof that it's still there? So it's possible, like at least I can say such a word, I can form such a sentence. Why not? Schuylkill River just disappeared at this moment. But of course, it sounds so silly to you, right? Like, unless somebody comes up with a proof that something happened to the river, you, like, no matter how many people come and claim that, well, what if Schuylkill just disappeared? It's likely, it's possible, you know, 1 over something, something. Would say, well, I mean, it was there last time I saw. I don't see any explicit evidence that it disappeared. So just the mere likelihood, which is not an reasonable doubt, it is just some, in its essence, anything can happen. So this wouldn't give you any doubt. So why shall I take it serious, practically speaking? So this is the sort of thing that the author in here is highlighting when he says, I'm referring to the sentence, which I believe this is the 4th sentence. He shows also things which are essentially possible together with those that are reasonably possible. So he's making a distinction between essentially possible versus reasonably possible. It says, making those things appear to be doubts opposed to certainty of belief. Am I? You guys don't hear me? Oh, because of the AC? Okay.
That part of the room, they didn't even realize it's.
I was-
The discussion started.
Okay.
Reasonable.
Reasonable possibility.
I'm guessing that's related to how one then distinguishes between, I'm sorry, I don't have the mic so online. You can repeat it afterwards, but.
Okay.
So my question was, what is the distinction he's trying to make between essential possibility versus reasonable possibility? Because the question that comes up, and I guess this is related to that, is how does one then distinguish between a doubt that one should take seriously or investigate versus a doubt that doesn't seem to have any base to it at all, right? And is worth just kind of dismissing.
Yes. What do you think, folks? I'm throwing the question to the room.
Help me out. Help us this out.
I guess like one essential possibility, like Schuylkill River, technically it's possible that it could have evaporated or it could have gone into the dirt. Physically, somehow it's possible. But it's extremely unlikely, or just there's no evidence for it. So why would I think it's even a likelihood? Like it would physically, it sounds possible. Like I could say, oh, but what if it just evaporated? But why? Like why would there's nothing to support that? So it's not reasonable, is how I understand.
Yes, there was something there. It's brewing. Is it ready? No, not ready. Okay. No, I think something is about to come from there. No? Okay.
I mean, when I read this, I'm thinking like Brother Rahman was saying, if I have nothing, if I have experience pointing to something or evidence pointing to something, that's how I would come to a conclusion that this is essentially possible. Like if I see, when I'm doing an experiment, I have the same recipe each time, I get the same results, then essentially I would expect, okay, it's essentially possible that this comes out of.
Maybe I can make one correction there. So by essential, he means in essence, it's possible, not like in fact, but in essence. Like you would say, why not? Like as evaporation is the example for essentially possible. Like, yeah, sure, like it's possible, not possible. Like this could have been brown or green, right? Like it could have been this way, it could have been that way. It's just some sort of a possibility. Like Zaha could have been flying or could have been not flying. Like I would say, yeah, maybe Zaha is the super girl, which we do not know. It's essentially possible, but is it reasonably possible? Like I haven't met a real super girl that can fly, right?
Like something that could happen, but then you have nothing pointing to the fact that it is reasonable.
Yeah. You have no reasonable evidence to support that. It is just,
Essentially possible would be like numerous things, like anything you could come up with would be an essentially possible.
Pretty much like any grammatical sentence that you can form, which says, yeah, of course, she's the bad girl or something. Like, where did this come from?
But then how you get to something reasonably possible, that would be where you base it off of your experience.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between.
Yeah.
What is the question?
No, the question was there. So I think Zaha was just opening it up. So what's the distinction between them? The question came from Sister Ayşenur. And yeah.
I have a question. So why do you think author is trying to categorize like what's a reasonable doubt and what's not a reasonable doubt? Like what is the like in this context, in the text that we read, why is that important to categorize that? And what is the ultimate goal? Like, is he like trying to say that like, okay, there are some doubts that can be reasonable, some are not, and you should just technically completely disregard the ones that are not? Is that the main theme here? Like, is that what he's trying to establish?
to the best of my understanding, yes. Because like in the text, now that we are at sixth, so he was trying to establish what Satan means or satanic means since the beginning. So these are simply baseless claims out there. So, and there are baseless claims which doesn't have any value, but because I'm a sensitive person, I think, or maybe I am inexperienced, I mix it with something that's worthy to really pay attention to. I don't know if this is going to be a too good of an example, maybe not. But sometimes, like in those multiple choice exam questions, there's one correct answer, and there are 4 wrong answers. Those 4 wrong answers, most of the time, if the question is prepared well, one of them is a challenging, similar to correct answer. But the remaining 3, most of the time, are way away from the correct answer. I think he might be making a similar case here, saying that some of the things that you consider as options out there are not really worthy to pay attention to. But if you are overly sensitive, I mean, when we were taking the university entrance exam, our teachers used to say, don't overthink with the question. Because we started interpreting the question. This was especially happening with text questions. And we said, did the questioner meant this? And then we were just writing as if like a tafsir of a question. He was just saying that, no, this is a simple question. These are clearly not what's meant, but there are a few worthy to consider options, but the others are not. Sometimes in the life, this is also happening. You tend to see some options out there which are not really worthy to pay attention to, but you might get lost so much so that, how do I even consider this as an option? And it starts shaking your faith. So author is saying that these are not things that are worthy to pay attention to.
Maybe in the other chapters you guys already, or the sections, maybe you have already discussed and studied that. But even like within this chapter, and if I'm like asking stupid questions, I'm sorry about that. So like, if you are to take this subject at the in the context of like man's like human beings' ultimate purpose, which is understanding your own impotence and weakness, and understanding your Rob and seeking refuge with him from anything that's evil, anything that is baseless. So within that context, like actually this is any doubts or any like false idea comes to mind, regardless whether it is a reasonable doubt or it is not a reasonable doubt, should kind of really serve for that purpose, shouldn't it? So like if you think from that perspective, like why should it even matter to categorize like what is a reasonable doubt and what's not? Because those are the I guess like pushes that you need to constantly remind yourself like who you really are and humble yourself, understand your impotence, so that actually you can seek refuge with your Lord. So it will serve a purpose for you to like actually be truly fulfill your what do you call it, like the worshiper role. So like from that perspective, like is that really that critical to differentiate what is reasonable and what's not reasonable? Because ultimately they all should serve the same purpose anyway. And I'm not sure why that is so critical to make that like distinction.
Jazakallah khair. So this summary is like seeking refuge in God. This is the topic. So since the point is to seek refuge in God, so does it matter from what type of a thing I am seeking refuge in God? Because at the end of the day, it's realizing my neediness and then seeking refuge in Him. So that's correct. But I think one important thing that I see here is the thing that I am seeking refuge in is really putting a question mark in from the one that I'm to whom I'm going to seek refuge in. Like it is putting a question mark on the very concept of God. Like this is the place that I'm going to seek refuge in, and the question mark is being put right on top of this. So what's at stake is I'm going to lose my faith in the one that I'm going to seek refuge in.
You're saying that, like there may not be like even like a notion of like a lordship that is already established in the worldview of the person. So if that is like in question, then how can you speak of like being in the role of like worshiper?
Yeah. So an author in here is saying that no, you're not losing your faith. Because the question is, like that question mark arises in my mind, and it sounds like a legitimate question, or at least I feel like it. The author is, and based on this, if it's a serious doubt, then I will start rightfully shaking. So the author says, no, that is not a thing. Like, let's distinguish what is really worthy to be taken serious and go over it, and others that are not. And as he is saying at the very end as a remedy, he says for this first type of problems, the solution is to get to know how people treated this before. He gives the example of like the students of the prophets. They established like those questions have been asked over the centuries, or the people went through all these journey, and they said, no, this is not really a question, a proper question. So you wouldn't really need to pay attention on this. You are paying attention to this because you do not properly know how to think. Let's remedy this part. This is easier to treat. So like that's a question. They're not equal questions. One of them is a nonsense question, but the other one, this one is a serious question. So making this distinction is important. Otherwise, as he says, either Satan works both his despair and that weak vein of his and his confusion, so that he either goes mad or, exclaiming all is lost, embraces misguidance. People do go into misguidance because of this, not really knowing what is a proper question and what is nonsense. And this is happening more so in this age under the disguise of, I would say, scientific explanations. Because apparently there seems to be a suggestion which is coming not from a Satan, but from a scientific authority. Sounds like it's a legitimate sentence. Sounds like it is really challenging belief in God. But as you pay, I guess probably the silliest example of this is what you will see in some like can God create a stone bigger than him, or like that he cannot lift or something. Like if you hear it for the first time in high school years, if you're not into, I don't know, any sort of thought experiments and whatnot, you start, really, God bigger, cannot lift? Can he not? If I say yes, it doesn't work. If I say no, it doesn't work. God doesn't exist. Like, you get excited. So this happens because you do not know how to think. But many more such examples are happening out there. And especially as it comes from certain levels of authority, people tend to lose their faith just because they don't know how to properly think. So I think this is why that first distinction in there is useful for, like in this case, what is seeking refuge in God? So he was saying that seek refuge then into prophetic teachings, like how, because then you need to learn how to think properly. If the problem arises from not knowing how to think properly, then you should start getting training of how to think properly. Yes. Comments, questions? So taking back to the rest of the text, today's topic, from the beginning, so from the beginning, we've been studying with this text about the idea of Satan. And we started with, what Satan represents, what is the wisdom of such a thing that we call Satan. We learned about how this aspect of the creation, this aspect of human that we call as Satan, is there, quote unquote, to unleash the potentiality that the human being has, right? It's like a training tool for us. And now we are studying how it works, how this training through the means of Satan, again, the aspect of human being, right? This is how it is represented in Quran. Aspect of human being, unleashing our true potential. We studied this true potential through the example of the seeds, right? 1,000 seeds, one tree example in a few weeks ago. Now we are studying again how it works. This is how this text ties back to the rest of the text. And now author says it works in a way, just like, we train children, we teach them something through what? Play, games, right? If we want to train them in, let's say, the social relationships, we would set up the game in which they will either watch the cartoons or participate, but it will be a game, not the real thing. Just like, the board games. For instance, the usual example is the Monopoly, right? The monies are fake, the properties are fake, real estates, but you play it to learn something about the transactions. The same way, author says, for human being, the creator, again, manifested as, this creation manifested as this aspect of Satan, but the creator shows some possibilities to the human being, right? Shows some real possibilities, some, the unreal possibilities, whatever. And as if asking, what do you think about that? Right? So Natalia, I've been through all these discussions, learn about the belief, how it works, right? And she knows that when she faces with something beautiful, like a beautifully prepared dinner, for instance, she would ask, who prepared this dinner, right? And then she will look at the qualities inside the dinner and say that it must be someone with such and such skills, right? This is how Iman works. And then, as part of this training, right, she will hear some alternatives whispered through her ear. Oh, what about a new machinery, a new machine, the robot, whatever, right, preparing this meal without any human interference? That's a possibility whispered to her ear. And then she will take this possibility and analyze it. Yeah, but, this dinner is my favorite one. So it must be someone who knows me,
she would say, and then get rid of this possibility. Without this possibility whispered, she wouldn't even question that, right? She wouldn't even realize that this dinner was prepared by someone who knows her. So thanks to, again, in quotes with underline, bold, thanks to this whispering, now so she started questioning, right? She saw a new quality, somebody knows her, that she was not aware before. Right? So now we're learning that this is how satanic whispering works and why they are there. They are there to teach us, to remind us certain possibilities and impossibilities through which we learn how to see new qualities in the creation. Right? A crazy person comes and whispers, "Oh, do you know one? Everything in this life, or in this the universe, maybe it came out of this something vacuum, fluctuations of X and Y and Z, whatever, and it happened by itself." Somebody would whisper. And then we would start questioning it. Is it possible? If it is, why? If it's not, why? Without asking these questions, without answering these questions, you cannot have a firm belief, right? Otherwise, you would just say, no, God created everything and repeat it every time. But you need these whispers, talking about some crazy possibilities, even, as author said, essentially possible, but not reasonably. All these crazy possibilities, so that Natalia would consider them, entertain them. Let's put it that way. Entertain them and see why and how they are wrong. Without them, she wouldn't have a firm belief. Again, to summarize then, how this text ties back to the rest of the sections that we studied so far. It teaches us how this satanic creation, it's a wrong phrase, the aspect of the creation that we call as Satan works in our lives. Whispers gives us some possibilities so that we negate them, and through which we learn things. We better understand things.
Jazakallah khairan. Any comments, questions about whispers in general or about the text in specific? No? Is it clear? Yes. The other microphone.
So, is it wrong to act on these whispers? Like, if we go off of what you were saying, like atoms move, this happens, it's still a whisper, right? And then you start thinking, oh, could this really be? So, let's say, like in medicine, let's say when you're working with diseases, you pick a target, like, oh, this is the gene, and I think this might have something to do with the disease. Let's try working with this. Let's try like either turning it down, increasing it, whatever, like it's a whisper at that point. So, but again, the gene has no share in the creation or like with that disease. So how do you act on that thought then? Like if you do act on it and then you, let's say, end up curing the disease, then is that wrong because you acted on a whisper, which was somewhat going against the fact that everything is created by Allah, in a way. But like, if you don't act on it, like, what's the correct way to go about it then?
So let's separate two things here, because like when it comes to, not necessarily for an unknown gene or something, because what you suggested can also apply for if I put salt to the food, it's going to taste better or not. It's more likely of a thing. Like it's not as unknown for most of us here about the genes, but pretty straightforward. If you think about it from really the creation point of view, it should not, in fact, right? It's not the salt that makes it tasty or not, but it's your creator. But the distinction that we need to make there is, you putting this salt in there is, you're just taking an active disposition, asking from your creator to make it tasty. So it's a separate conversation. Like whether salt makes it tasty or not, whether gene makes it happen or not, it's a separate conversation. But more so the topic in here is that like you are thinking about your creator, your relationship with your creator, or getting to know about how things are happening. At this point, like the likelihood of it happens by itself. Like this sort of a thing happens. It's not about the how do I say? Like the problem is not exactly, I think, where you are asking it. This is why I'm trying to distinguish it a little bit. It's not about the gene doing it, gene not doing it, but it's more so that the idea that I am considering in there doesn't have much of a value. Yet I am getting excited as if it is something that possibly shakes my faith. I can give a few different flavors of it so that maybe it can relate to. Because this is coming from a certain, I mean, the examples I will give are going to be super toy examples, but maybe together we can think about it and make it more applicable. Like, I was giving this as an example last week as well. To a student, a certain person comes and says, you should go to Palestine and fight there. And he says there's such and such opportunity that I can offer you. Now the student is really feeling that he is sinning 24/7 since he didn't take this opportunity. And probably there was not such opportunity, but the guy just was faking with him. But he was just feeling so anxious, and he was coming and he asked me multiple times, maybe 2-3 times throughout our 1-hour conversation, am I sinning now or not? Like he seriously take it as a real suggestion. I said, like, the guy was just faking with you for different political reasons. He had a different agenda. Why are you taking that serious? It's a clear nonsense. Like what the guy suggested to you was a nonsense, but you are getting overly anxious about this. So that is like that student, for example, was not able to distinguish what is a real suggestion, what is a satanic suggestion. Although in this example, it's literally came out of a man's mouth, but no way, like this is a nonsense. So this happens in our, like, as we are trying to figure out the meaning, purpose, how things are happening in this existence. One example is, and I heard it from a good number of students who attended this discussion. They would say, what if there are 2 gods who are getting on well with each other so well? Why not? Like, hypothesizing, it sounds okay, right? Best buddies, 2 gods, but they're best buddies. They never disagree with each other. Why is it not possible? I heard this question so many times from people attending in this discussion. But, I mean, technically you would say it sounds okay, like you can form such a sentence, but you know what does this sentence entail? Like, when you say 2 gods, what do you mean 2 gods? 2 absolute, independent, like, yet infinite and at the same time super limited. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. It's just a sentence that you can form together. That's all it is. But this is a serious question that's being asked time to time, and people are getting anxious about this, saying that, well, what if? Really? What if they are best buddies? But to really distinguish this and realize that this is not even a question, it's nonsense. There's no evidence, no nothing, and it's in its entirety that you can come up with 1,000 different reasons that this is nonsense. On top of this, there's no indication that such is the case. Why would you even entertain the idea? This is why you wouldn't even try to answer this. You would say, like, there's no point of talking even about such a thing. And this is generally happening at the level of, I would say, when somebody's thinking about it. But another flavor of it is when those suggestions are coming from really coming out of a human mouth of authority. Social media nowadays is such. If enough number of people say it, or New York Times say something, like sometimes you read an article and you just cringe and say, like, what a nonsense. But those guys are speaking as if this is what happened, right? Many such things are happening out there. And if you really do not know how to properly navigate thought or how to read the book of universe, the existence, the experiences themselves, you might feel like my belief is currently under attack and I'm losing it. And I'm already attached to religion with a few strings and they're just about to get detached and I'm just losing it. So this is why when he says either they go mad if you would like to stick to it, and all these, as long as you take them serious, either you lose your mind or you say, well, I mean, this is too much, I cannot stand with it, and then you dive into misguidance. So yes.
I guess for me, the way we've been talking about whispers appears that it's like suggestions that are really out of the ordinary for me, like the example of the Schuylkill becoming empty, like, is a possibility. But I feel like for me, there are also whispers, like, for example, the multiple choice question you were mentioning, the wrong answer that looks really close to the right answer, like, those are the types of whispers that I feel like I struggle with a lot. Like, I don't even, because they're so similar, like, I guess maybe this whisper and like maybe the truth, for example, like, I don't even think to question. So if I can't question it, like, how do I, so like, it's like, I guess my question is, how do I then learn to question things? I guess is the idea that eventually the whispers become so loud that you have no choice, or they become more I guess more sculpted to what you need in order to make you question something. Like, is an aspect of taking refuge with God also like trying to ask how to question, like, between whispers that just sound like the truth?
Just to give some examples to help sisters there. So, for instance, the one whisper we keep hearing last a few years is that maybe God is not that powerful, letting all these children, women, innocent men, even men sometimes can be innocent, die, right? A few people just sending, like, pressing a few buttons. It's not even anymore like the body to body combat. Just pressing a few buttons, drones carrying some bombs and then leaving them. What kind of power we talk about? All these Muslim people dying there, believers dying there. Maybe God is not that much merciful, right? It sounds like supported by some evidence. Or with Ahmed's question, like, yeah, the God is all powerful and he decides everything, but maybe in creation there are some shares of the power. Right? This gene is responsible for that part of the creation. And yeah, the rest of the creation entirely goes to the God. God creates everything. But maybe he created the gene in such and such way. It takes a share in creation, a tiny amount of share. And it's not a big deal. Kind of whisper. So this also sounds like reasonable whisper. Even like to the extent some believers, thinkers would say, oh yeah, it's with the permission of Allah, Bismillah, right? With the permission of God, genes can create such and such things. That they would say, because it sounds reasonable, supported by some evidence. Is it? Or, again, the limits in the mercy of the creation. This whisper sounds more realistic. And I would say, again, without such whispers, you wouldn't truly know what all merciful means. To really understand and live what all merciful means, you have to go through these bombings. I mean, in your life, that will be one type of bombing or another, right? It's same for the entire human history, for every individual. There will be some wars, physical or immaterial wars. You will go through such wars, such experiences, and there will be such whispers that will shake your understanding of the merciful. And then you will start questioning, maybe I was wrong. Maybe God is not that merciful. And then you will taste where this thought takes you, right? You will ask more questions. You will say, okay, what am I seeing there? Let's start with that. What is, the feeling of discomfort is coming from? You would start questioning this. And then, if you can see the mercy in this creation as well, a child dying, you see mercy there. Now your understanding of all merciful is expanded. Without these whispers, you wouldn't. So from one angle, I don't think we should just dismiss these whispers and say that they don't even mean anything. They just misformulated questions or whatever. I think it would be the lazy road. What you are supposed to do is that you will take these whispers, again, not implement them or not leave them, but entertain them. You will just dissect what it means, where it takes me, right? What kind of creation it suggests. And then you will, take it apart into pieces and one by one negate them. Then you will have a true understanding of the all merciful. The same goes with the gene example. You will start, and that's what we do anyway. You will start with the understanding of, maybe gene is doing that part or that this part. But then you will start questioning, what does it really mean, gene doing any part in the creation, creating blue eyes, right? And then you will easily realize that even this tiny thing is connected to the rest of the creation, everything in your body. So you cannot take it in an isolation. You will realize. When you realize that, now you will have a true understanding of whoever is creating my blue eyes, I mean, I don't have blue eyes, but whoever has, my blue eyes must be the one controlling my kidneys as well, must be the one who controlling the speed of the bomb falling onto Gaza, and must be the one who is taking apart the body of a children. Right? All of them are interconnected. Now your understanding of all powerful, the one who controls everything, is now established with these whispers. So what you should do, not maybe act on them, but entertain them, question them what they mean, right? Where it leads us, etc. And by doing so, make your belief stronger.
There's a second thing that he's mentioning in here as an extension to this. He says also sometimes say it, so he says, for example, numerous essential possibilities about the human aspects of the noble messenger may occur to him, which cause no harm to his firm belief, but he imagines that they have, and so suffers harm. This is an interesting example that he's touching upon. Prophet ﷺ was a human being. And just as you can think any question about a human being, you can say, yeah, maybe. Actually, nowadays, this is being done not by ourselves, but open in the media. Like Prophet married such and such person in such and such of an age. And then, oh, what sort of a person was he? Like this is a question that's arising about the prophets. And then on one hand, you're saying that prophet is the person who is really bringing this guidance to my life, which truly enlightens my perspective in this life. Without this message, what would I have been? And this person is the first person who truly received and digested this message, right? Just imagine what sort of a person would embody such a message. But on the other hand, the whisper comes and says, oh yeah, he married a girl at age 6. Today, for example, if your neighbor were to marry some girl at age 6, you would think certain things about that person, right? And they say, oh, Prophet was such a person. How serious can you take this whisper? Because this is nowadays a serious whisper, not so light of a whisper, actually, isn't it? How would you take this? What is your evidence for your client? What's your evidence for that? Or how would you approach this? Because what do you see from Messenger is the message and the legacy that's left behind, and nothing that indicates what you have a question mark about in your mind. Yet, technically, yes, this might be a reason that somebody marries a child. But is this the reason that was happening at this picture, at this case? How am I going to understand what was going on at this point? Can I take it as an isolated human being having an affair with an underage person? Like, how am I going to understand the matter? Okay, I opened up a can of worms. Let's see where this goes.
So the subject is being discussed in the context of belief a lot, but I guess I'm getting old. And as I get older, I'm realizing that along with the belief, if there is no submission to what you believe in, there is still no salvation. So this subject, I think, also should be maybe discussed from that perspective, that all the whispers, all the alternative ideas that you hear should help drawing yourself closer to your sustainer, and should also like make you understand your own really impotence and go back to him, and with an understanding that there is no other way, and there's no other way of like also getting out of those like in the state that you are in, like in terms of the whisper, so that like you can like strengthen that relationship, and also understanding that without his help and without like his like without him like granting his mercy, no matter like how much you try to like understand like the experiences you are going through on your own, you will not be able to get out of that state. And that's also the reason why like I think subject goes like back and forth in between like seeking refuge with God like from Satan. So like as a last statement, I think these are means to draw ourselves closer to our like Rob, and they should be used as such as means to like for us to continuously practice that like relationship, or practice it in a way that utilize them in a way that like that we will draw closer to him in our consciousness.
Yes, any comments, any questions? Yes, where is the microphone? Oh, brother, two.
I think for a lot of these discussions, we come back to like a similar understanding of, to the extent that you're convinced of something, you would be able to engage with something that that are whispers or suggestions, whatever you may call it, and parse out what is reasonable versus what is just a possibility that is just coming out of someone's mouth, for example. Similar to how when we say, to the extent that we read our experiences, and through that form an understanding of who our sustainer is, when we're suggested with something that, like, even if like Satan here, it's mentioned, he brings those two together. He essentially muddles what is essentially possible with what is reasonably possible. But if I'm convinced of, okay, this is who my sustainer is because of these experiences that I have in my life, I'll be able to parse out what is just a whispering and what cannot be possible. Similar to the Prophet's life as well, to the extent that I engage with the teachings that he was, what he taught us, to the extent that I understand like who he is, to like, then certain suggestions just become mere like possibilities that have no basis of their own. So ultimately I feel like it all comes down to that reading aspect, reading experiences, and in a sense I feel like sometimes it's kind of like in a loop, because we have to read it based on the Prophet ﷺ's teachings, but then at the same time we're also reading him, right? But I view it as like a lifelong practice. Like Brother Burkan was saying, we're given these challenges because they're there to strengthen us, enable us to pick out right from wrong. And yes, we can always choose the right answer, but then that's not doesn't align with the purpose that we were created for.
Jazakallah khairan. Yeah, that was a good summary. And any question left? What do you think? Is it getting clear, or any questions, any comments? Okay. So that was that. And at the end, as he has been wrapping things up, again, he concludes the believer's stronghold in the face of the former stratagems of Satan are the truths of belief and incontestable matters of the Quran, the limits of which have been defined by the principles of the purified exacting scholars. So, yes, we do seek refuge in God, but there are ways of making supplication. So author in here is saying that you do this, where do you seek refuge? In your creator. Just like I seek sustenance from my creator. How do I do this? By going to the kitchen. Like I go to kitchen to eat food, I can say that, no, I seek food or sustenance in the fridge, I can say. Or I can say, actually, I seek sustenance from my creator by opening the door of the fridge. Like, from whose hands am I taking it? But in any case, for human, you seek it by opening the door of the fridge, right? So how do you seek refuge in your creator when such a whisper comes to you? So as the first one is by paying attention to the truths of belief, which are described in Quran and extensively studied by the scholarship. So seek refuge by getting into here. So, which can also, with the warning of Brother Uthman, so you can read it from reverse. As you study these teachings of Quran, don't say that, oh, I got it, I am smart, and now I'm going to beat Satan. No. You are now in the stronghold of Quran, like Quran is protecting you. Without this message being there, you would be lost. So be thankful to your creator because of the guidance. Don't say that, oh, I understood and I am unshakable. No, you are being provided guidance by your creator. So be thankful rather than being boastful. So this is why Brother Osman's reminder was important about realizing your neediness. That was important. But still, there's a practical aspect of seeking refuge. It's not simply realizing and then, I mean, of course, nobody does this, but realizing my neediness, Satan is pressing so hard, you open your hand and close your ears and God protect me, God protect me. Like, it's not working like this either. For the second part, and in the face of the latter stratagem was, I mean, we didn't touch it upon it too deeply, but it was more so in the sense of this. I mean, I heard this version of it from people as well. I don't know, it might have been a super extreme version, but that friend was saying that when he's in the prayer, for example, just curse words come to his mouth or heart about the creator, just cursing. And he was getting so anxious and saying that I am at the prayer and I am cursing. Like, what's happening? What's happening with me? So he was getting overly anxious about it. Now the author is saying that human has certain aspects which are not listening to your choice. Even sometimes, despite your choice, some ideas occur to you, some feelings occur to you, even though you want the opposite, exact opposite of it. Says the mere fact that you're disturbed by it signifies that it's not yours. So don't take it upon yourself. Just ignore it. But this is I think, especially the specific case is, maybe it doesn't happen to everybody all the time. It might happen time to time, but not always. But for this, the second one, he says, the believer's stronghold is to seek refuge with God and to attach no importance to them. This is a specific type of whisper. If you felt it, you know what it is. If you didn't feel it, you might want to relate it to something else, but I think author is specifically talking about something here.
So this is coming clearly out of your control, but like how you react to them is like completely depending on your own free will and how you react to it.
And author's suggestion is just ignoring at this point.
Thank you for repeating the word ignore. So maybe we should open up this ignore part. Like we can ignore them by just, oh yeah, I don't care about them. They don't belong to me, and continue living as if nothing happened. You can do that. But then you would kind of negate the wisdom in their creation as well. If you do that, you can ignore them in a maybe better way, as the author says at the very end. Take them as means of, they take them as a reminder that you cannot control your thoughts, you cannot control your feelings. Let them remind you that, and then seek refuge from them to God. This is the proper ignoring. Otherwise, it will be just, ignorance in the dictionary meaning, as if it never happens. But then you just, again, denying the wisdom in their creation as well. What you should do instead, just realize that you cannot even control your thoughts. You're not even happy with these thoughts. That means it's not your creation, right? If it was your creation, as author says, the fact that you are not happy with them shows that it's not your choice, it's not your creation, right? Not even your choice. So you now understand that. I cannot even control my thoughts. Same goes with the feelings. You would have some inappropriate feelings in some inappropriate contexts sometimes, right? You would look at someone, you would feel in a certain way, that it is shameful. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have these feelings, but it is there. You can simply ignore them or realize that I cannot even control my feelings. They are given to me. And I don't know most of the times how to act on them. So I seek refuge to God. Now, this experience, which seemingly terrible thing, doesn't have any meaning in it, just curse occurring in your mind, becomes a means to get closer to your Lord. Now it has fulfilled its wisdom.
Jazakallah khairan. And in this context, author is not going to go any further details into whispers, but in elsewhere he focuses on another version of it. I don't know if you guys experienced it. When trying to take wudu, washing your arm 5 times, 10 times, or taking wudu twice, you take wudu, you stepped out, and you say, did I really wash my head or no? Let me go back and take it again. And then doing it 3 times, 5 times. Once we had a student at Drexel, he was just almost taking a shower. Like he used to open the faucet to the end, and he would just wash his hand so many times. And then he would start, after washing it, and you just need to wash it 3 times, right? And very quick. After washing it, how many times? He would just then start doing like this, like the first finger is under the water, second finger, third finger, fourth and fifth, just making sure that it is perfectly sterile. And then, like, it was just being a pool. Before the faucet was becoming a pool, puddle. So,
But he was so kind that he would let everyone else to take the wudu first.
Yeah, because it takes forever.
Would take too long.
Because his wudu would take forever. So, even, well, this is too much about males, but when we were in high school, whomever comes to our classroom was a little more religious than the others. And we used to do Dhuhr prayer in the break, like the lunchtime. And whomever comes to our school, their wudu was taking 20 to half an hour. And the people in the other classroom was saying that, whomever comes to your classroom get nuts. Like normally we take wudu in 3 minutes. Anybody who comes to your class starts taking it in half an hour. What's wrong with you guys? Like this somehow sensitivity was increasing. Like, is this a proper thing or is this just a whisper? We sometimes call it perfection. Is it really perfection? Or is it like, what is going wrong in here? Too religious? We are becoming too religious. So this is yet another form in the name of, sometimes we call it, I guess, you can call it OCD, you can call it perfection. Author is saying that this is a baseless whisper, which is, again, if you don't know what it is given for, it starts ruining your life. As Brother Birkan highlighted, there's a wisdom in this whispers existing, but if I start taking it the other way, because as we start getting more religious, no, my wudu is going to be perfect. The other guys in B class, B section, I mean, they don't care. We do care. So our wudu is better. Our prayer is more perfect. We are closer to God. Like, it could be any flavor. It could have some sort of a false, such underlying false claims in there. But yeah, whispering is in and of itself an important topic, even more so that nowadays with the social media, even the algorithms are really shaping our perception with hidden whispers. Being vigilant about this is, I think, important. It's not trivial. The topic that's being mentioned in here is getting even subtler and subtler nowadays. Sometimes it's under the guise of authority. Sometimes it is like the algorithm shows you all the same thing and you start feeling like everybody is buying this brand because you see it in YouTube, you see it in Instagram and also Amazon. Well, all of them are advertising you the same thing. Nobody else is buying it other than you. But these whispers are starting to get very sneaky nowadays. So becoming vigilant about this is important. Okay, let's conclude here. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.